What's up, everybody? Welcome to the community call. We have a bunch of stuff to go over actually this week, and I know some of us are back from events and traveling over the past week or so maybe they could talk about that as well. But to kick things off, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping about some of the stuff that's gone out over the past couple of days. Then we'll talk about Say and ETH and the sort of collaboration we have with Nucleus on the branded LST front. Maybe we could do some event stuff, and then from there we'll close it out. So in case you miss it, a couple of APX ETH and PX ETH integrations that have gone live. Tokamak is back from the dead or alive and well. I don't really know for sure how long they've been working on the solution that they've been working on, but they've now launched this sort of new liquidity management vault auto pool type thing where basically you can deposit a couple of different LSTs and they sort of farm a basket of various liquidity pools. From what I'm looking at now, it appears that the PX ETH wrapped ETH pool and the PX ETH staked ETH pool are somewhere around like 30 something percent of the total basket, which is pretty good. I mean, it looks like the yield on the Tokamak product is about 38.6 something percent. And it has about 10 million TVL, which is really good. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to check that out. I don't know what all of the rewards are or how they're paid out or anything like that. So definitely kind of like look into it yourself and make sure that it's something you're down for. But yeah, it's good to see Tokamak back from the hiatus they've been on and launching new products. It's always a good thing. Outside of that, I don't know how to say this project. Is it Dyad? Does anybody know how to actually say the name? Dyad, DYAD, whatever it is. Dyad. So they have added APX ETH as a collateral type on their protocol. So basically you can, just like any other sort of like stablecoin borrowing protocol, use the APX ETH to borrow their stable and then do some LP farming. The one that they're promoting right now is the USDC Dyad pool. I do not know what the yield is off the top of my head, but it apparently says the highest stable yield on mainnet. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. Funky says it's about 20%, but of course, Dyad's a relatively small protocol. They're still trying to grow as far as I know, and always proceed with caution when you're not only using leverage, but farming with new stables. We're not responsible for how the stablecoin performs over the next year or whatever it is. So those are the two sort of like typical integrations that we announced over the past week or so, or 2 weeks. One more thing that we put out that I want to make sure that everybody shares is this sort of new educational piece on where the PX ETH and APX ETH yield comes from. Make sure to spread that far and wide. Obviously, it's one of the most popular questions. It's even a question that we got on the Say sort of Twitter Spaces yesterday. So make sure to spread that. It's super easy to read. Most people, is the yield real? Most people ask that question, and that's going to be their answer. It even has pictures for anybody who can't read. So outside of that, I think now would be a good time to sort of pivot into the branded LST discussion, because we have a lot to cover on that front, given Say and ETH is officially live, which is our first sort of branded LST. And it'll be the first time we get to see not only a branded LST in the wild, but also a little bit of a partnership we've been building with Nucleus, who we can touch on, who is the builder of Super Saiyan ETH. So I guess we could start by, let me grab the announcement here. Let me share this. So this is the announcement for Saiyan ETH. In it, you'll kind of get a TLDR of what to expect. And if you go to Saiyan ETH, let me spell this out, SaiyanETH.com, you can actually see the kind of generalized UI that we've kind of built for teams to use, etc. So Saiyan ETH, again, I know we've talked about this on a couple of community calls. The branded LSTs and Saiyan ETH included are essentially like a cosmetic wrap. You could think of them as like a cross-chain cosmetic wrapper for APX ETH. The end user has the same experience as they would if they're holding APX ETH for the most part. The yield is going to be very similar. They just get to earn it on the chain of their choice with branding that they are already familiar with. And one of the things that makes branded LSTs particularly interesting is that it helps our cross-chain strategy in that teams who are not only building in the ecosystems that embrace branded LSTs, but chains who want us to come on board have a bigger incentive to sort of push these LSTs because it's attached to a brand, a meme, or whatever that their community is already very familiar with. And we've already seen like a lot of the Say community be very excited about the sort of Say and ETH branding and all of this stuff. I don't know if what else we should kind of touch on here. Maybe Funky, you could kind of touch on the sort of DeFi strategy for it in a bit, and then we could go into the Nucleus stuff. But if you haven't already, please check out the Say and ETH announcement just to get the gist for what it is. And we have, of course, a ton more of these in the pipeline. I guess now we could talk a little bit about the DeFi strategy. So Funky, if you want to take it from there, feel free to leak a little alpha about what our plans are for sort of the Say and ETH growth strategy.
Yeah, so Say and ETH is really, I know, our first branded ETH deployment, and we got Pho here from Jellyverse. Hey, how's it going? And on the base, SETH is basically APX ETH, and receives the same amount of yield APX ETH does. But there are kind of a number of different ways that users will be able to get even more yields with their SETH. And the first one, I think, is through SSETH. So say SETH is Say and ETH, and then SSETH is Super Say and ETH. And SETH and SSETH are kind of interfacing directly. SETH essentially will compose 70% of the SSETH vault. So SSETH is a Nucleus vault which receives different LSTs, and then Nucleus does some magic to generate additional yield on those LSTs while targeting a 70% SETH kind of collateral in that kind of vault. And on top of that, SSETH will receive kind of direct Say rewards, Dinero rewards, and Nucleus points. So if you have some ETH, some APX ETH, and you're looking to get some more yields, SSETH, and then ultimately SETH, and then ultimately SSETH is kind of the way to go. And then on top of that, we are working with JellySwap to kind of create some pools. We'll have 3 pools, I think. One is SETH pool, which will receive Say and Dinero rewards. And then we'll have a SSETH SETH pool as well, which receives Say, Dinero, and Nucleus points as well. So yeah, a lot of different kind of ways for people to earn yield. The kind of real strategy, I guess, as Colton wants to allude to, is finding ways to kind of work with different partners such as Nucleus, Say, JellySwap, to unlock new yield opportunities in different places and provide assets that are attractive for people to hold, and ultimately that will kind of all circle back to increased APX TVL.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that I saw a lot of people in the Discord asking about that we should probably touch on a little bit is kind of the relationship that we have with Nucleus and how they kind of will fit into at least some percentage of the branded LSTs that we end up launching into the future. So basically the rollout earlier this week, everybody was confused whenever they saw Super Say and ETH go live. They thought it was a branded LST or whatever. So I think this is a good time to kind of go full circle. No way we're getting a scam right now. They're finding ways to post links without them being links. Look at this. Hold on, let me ban this guy. Did we already ban him? Hell yeah, mods are already on it. Look at that. That's crazy. I mean, in the community call, that's where we're at right now. Anyways, so a lot of you saw the Super Say and ETH announcement go live. You're confused, so on and so forth. So first things first, when it comes to comms, nothing is ours unless we announce it. That's rule kind of number 1. But number 2, the Nucleus relationship is kind of interesting because whenever we started building out this branded LST solution and BizDev started doing their thing and kind of making the connections and trying to figure out who was interested, we found out that Nucleus was kind of building something similar but not similar in that their goal was to ultimately find a way to offer ETH yields to multiple chains and L2s, but they were doing it in a different way, as Funky kind of suggested earlier, where they implement a more slightly more like involved strategy for generating the underlying yield, whereas our branded LSTs are kind of just like pure staking yield. And so once we found out what they were doing, we thought it'd be pretty interesting to explore like how we could collaborate further. And one of the ways that we thought would be the sort of best approach is through this sort of Saiyan ETH and Super Saiyan ETH model where you have a one LST that kind of is just offering pure staking yield. This is for somebody who doesn't want to take on any increased risk or do any sort of advanced strategy for generating yield. All they want to do is like earn staking yield. Saiyan ETH is the best approach for them. However, if you're wanting to earn more yield and you're willing to be a little bit more risk on with your ETH or whatever else, then turning that Saiyan ETH into Super Saiyan ETH is the sort of like where Nucleus comes in is sort of the best option for those types of people. So we get to kind of like go after the same chains because the products that we're offering are pretty like complementary. And I don't know if we want to, Sammy, I don't know if you want to touch on that relationship a bit more, or like go into more detail, but that is the TLDR. And if anybody has questions about it, feel free to ask.
I think like look like the nice thing about the branded LSTs is like we are not the main ones that are responsible for growing the branded LSTs. If Say wants to have more dexes, they'll invite more dexes to use Say ETH. If they want more yield vaults, then they'll invite Nucleus. If they want more money markets, then they'll invite more money markets, right? We are very like unopinionated on what we like what we want to do here. If one ETH and Super Saiyan ETH brings more TVL to us, then like we're game, right? There's no like nothing that anyone uses on Say that involves Saiyan ETH is bad for us. So like one deposit in Super Saiyan ETH is basically the equivalent of a deposit into Saiyan ETH, right? It's just a yield optimizer. And they're cool guys who want to like, incentivize more deposits into their vaults. So we're not against that either. If they want to put up, Nucleus points for people to deposit into Super Saiyan ETH, which is like more than more than half, I think a very large majority comprised of Saiyan ETH, then like who are we to complain, right? More TVL for us. And yeah, like we just got it live now. I think it's just got started on mainnet. I think deposits will start relatively soon after we get all the integrations live and oracles and all that sort of stuff, clean out some bugs. So yeah, I'm excited to get this one out the door. I think do we have the docs live now with all the audits and everything, Carlton?
No, not yet. But
Okay.
yeah,
Docs should
hopefully,
be
and
going live soon. And you
yeah.
guys will see how many fucking audits we had to do for this shit. Ridiculous, but like, it's our first time like doing something very, very multi-chain, which, obviously requires us to be a lot more diligent than something where there's not more funds at risk, like a hidden hand or something, right? So thank you all for bearing with us. And now, the plan for the rest of the year is to get out, multiple, more than I can count on my two hands of these products, like until the year ends. So it should be fun. Should be fun. And in that same window, get out IPX ETH and do whatever we can with that. So yeah, it should be lots of fun and lots of good catalysts for TVL.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions that I think are pretty good. So, Creamy, questionable name choice, but we'll go with it. Creamy asks, what are the risks between Super Saiyan ETH or SS ETH versus Saiyan ETH or S ETH? So, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'll do it just like one more time to be very clear. Saiyan ETH is, you could think of it pretty much the same as you think about APX ETH. It is just like pure staking yield that is sort of backed by APX ETH. Super Saiyan ETH looks to take that a step further by not only making like Super Saiyan ETH or Saiyan ETH rather a part of this sort of basket of LSTs, but it also implements other strategies. I don't know what the strategies are off the top of my head. Maybe Funky knows. If not, you should definitely like check out the Nucleus Discord or whatever.
I can give an example. It's probably something like 70% Saiyan ETH, 20%, let's say like staked Frax ETH, and maybe like 10% EtherFi ETH, right? It could be something like, I don't think it is that, So we'll get the numbers and confirm like what it is, but most of them will be comprised like that. So like majority of the TVL in Super Saiyan ETH is Saiyan ETH, and all the other collaborations we do with those guys.
Yeah, and so their goal is ultimately like to create these baskets and then employ some more like experimental strategies for generating yield. I would recommend like checking out the Say Spaces where Chunda, the founder of Nucleus, was on there, kind of like giving some insight into what those strategies might look like. But yeah, you could think of like Saiyan ETH, super risk off, staking only, and then you could think of Nucleus as like a little bit more, sorry, Super Saiyan ETH as a little bit more adventurous, and so you'll get more yield as a result of that. Another question is like, more branded LSTs equal less yield due to having a lower PXETH multiplier. To some degree, this is true. Like ultimately, if all TVL piles into APXETH, then the APXETH yield goes down. But that's where some of our other like PXETH strategic decisions come into play. Like ultimately, the system is designed to scale on both sides, and if we get to a few billion TVL or whatever, and the yield isn't 8% anymore, like that probably might not be super shocking. That's kind of something to expect, but I think we have a long way to go before we get there, and we're also looking into doing everything we can to make sure that people are just as interested in the PXETH side of the equation. And right now, I mean, the yields are still really good in DeFi, especially on the PXETH side. So yeah, we're considering both things here. Like we're not only focused on APXETH growth, we're also focused on PXETH growth as well. One more question we had, it's not in the Town Hall text chat, but I saw it after we kind of like went live with the Saiyan ETH announcement, is whether or not, 1 ETH going into Saiyan ETH equals 1 ETH going into APX ETH. And yes, that is the case. So there doesn't need to be like a separate deposit tracker or anything like that. Ultimately, PX ETH and the APX ETH system are what's backing Saiyan ETH. So it's all kind of like, you could think of it as one system in that way, which also makes this stuff a lot easier to track whenever, we're on multiple chains. And then last question, I guess, regarding, first off, if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to ask. But one more I saw in the Discord over the course of the week was kind of like, people are tracking the growth of Saiyan ETH, and obviously you guys are going to track the growth of all of the other ones we launch. One thing to consider that from a strategic perspective, these sort of branded LSTs are quite similar to like a hidden hand market from a strategic perspective, right? Like we need to be on as many places as we can, but that doesn't mean they'll all be equally as successful, right? It all depends on how much an ecosystem is willing to adopt it, how deeply integrated it is, so on and so forth. And so there might be the case that some are way larger than others, that some don't gain a lot of traction, but others gain a shitload of traction. So we have no way to ultimately like predict that. All we can do is bring it to the chains that want them, let the BD team do their thing, set up as many integrations for them as we can on their respective chains, and then wherever they go from there is kind of where they go.
Yeah, and there's some chains that like, we're talking to where maybe they have a strategic reason why they want this. Maybe one of them is like to have it as the gas token, right? So the gas token is like natively yielding, or maybe another one is so the chains that spin off of that chain can use that asset for restaking or something, right? So we're not just like going to spin these up and, well, like, look, if it's like hidden hand, where if anyone comes to us and says, hey, we want to do it, then the way we've designed the system is to be very modular so that we can do it. But I think the right way to think about it is more like, when we do spin them up, like we are asking these teams, like, what do they want? Like, what can we do to like scale this beyond just like typical DeFi TVL?
Did you have something else to add on to that?
No.
Did we lose you? Oh, okay, I thought we lost you for a second. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, I mean that's the broader like way we're looking at this. So hopefully that answers most people's questions about the launch this week. I see Bond God typing, so I'm sure there's going to be a question coming in. Okay, maybe not. Damn, someone deposited a few moments ago 4% of PXETH into APXETH, looks like. Yeah. I think there's going to be like, especially now that the market is hopefully entering like a interesting stage with, I guess I saw the Fed like lowered rates or whatever, like hopefully things get more exciting on the DeFi front coming into the next several months. And we'll see a lot of shifting between PXETH and APXETH and vice versa. When RB, hopefully, imagine. I mean, ultimately, our biggest goal is to like be on as many layer ones and layer twos as we possibly can, especially, the opportunity to work with big ones like that are definitely in our sights. So we'll do what we can. Yeah, ETH. Imagine APX ETH just becomes the base token of Ethereum. Gas token will be really nice. Do you mean on other chains or something else? Yeah, I mean, I think some of the teams, I don't want to leak too much, but there's definitely like some teams who have expressed interest in having a branded LST as a gas token. I don't know what that looks like from a technical perspective. I mean, we don't really have Never here to sanity check it, but I know there have been some teams that have expressed interest. And if we are able to execute on that, that'd be pretty cool. Question for you, Funky. I think with the time swap APX ETH pool maturing in 2 weeks, are we still planning on doing sort of more pools with them?
So time swap. So yeah. So as you're probably really aware, Bond God, the adoption on time swap, especially on Arbitrum, hasn't been great. So we probably won't continue doing stuff with them. I think in terms of lending markets, we've had some pretty good adoption on Sturdy and on Morpho. So I think we'll concentrate our efforts there.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess that also brings up a broader point about the like DeFi strategy in general. I think we're getting to a point now where everything has been live for a long enough time that we kind of see what's working and what's not and where we should focus the incentives going forward. I know like people have been asking about like re-upping the Karak incentives, for example, and I think that's one of those things where like it's probably not worth it for us to continue to incentivize. So we're kind of like, I know Funky especially is taking a look at all of these things and seeing what's worth it and what's not. And so if you see incentives for certain things go away, the reason is probably that they're just not getting the adoption that warrants the amount of incentives they're getting.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like we track the kind of efficiency of the incentives, and it's kind of it's in the DAO's best interest really to incentivize in a way that gets the most value out of each Dinero.
Yeah, and it looks like there's a hidden hand question about time swap. I don't know if we've talked to them about a market or anything like that. Maybe Sammy knows, but if not, we can definitely try to start the conversation. Why not? Cool. Well, I think... Oh, go ahead, Sammy.
I think we talked about that somewhere with them. I can't remember where. Publicly, I mean. Yeah, Hidden Hand actually did some cool stuff that we'll be able to talk about soon. A bit more of like a, grander vision for Hidden Hand in terms of the markets we're aiming for, closer to, not just DeFi projects, but like other use cases that could be interesting. So Hidden Hand announcements. There's a new Hidden Hand Twitter for those who still haven't followed it. Maybe Figgy can link it. All the Hidden Hand announcements will be going from there. But yeah, keep an eye out because we're doing some cool stuff there still.
Yeah, Hidden Hand's not going anywhere. It's still a part of the BD strategy, and in some cases, it's even a part of the Dinero strategy. So follow the Twitter and keep an eye on it. Now would probably be a good chance to kind of pivot into some of the event stuff. And I see Terrence on stage, and I'm sure he has some bullish ranting of some sort that he wants to let out. He's probably got a cigarette in hand and all. So we can kind of talk about the events and whatnot. Vicefacts asked about Token 2049. Were there any teams reaching out in person? Any key takeaways that are worth sharing alpha-wise for the call? I don't know who wants to start, Sammy or Terrence, but feel free to take it away.
I'm going to say as much as I can without having to tell everyone the NFA disclaimer that I had to run through last community call. But basically, we did really well in token. Sammy can maybe speak to a bit more of the DeFi side of things that we're working on, but on the institutional front, the things that we're going to be doing with Galaxy are going to be much broader than we originally anticipated, as well as with a few other asset managers, which is, I think, something we already alluded to previously, but it's very successful on the institutional front. I think we're going to see IPXC, if you already haven't seen on mainnet, begin being deployed within the next 2 weeks. So definitely keep an eye out there. Yeah, I'm going to stop myself before everyone has to get the disclaimer.
We needed just like a little like bot command or whatever that we can play on here before Terrence talks.
I wasn't planning on going, and then got FOMO'd in the last minute of going just because there's certain people that we had to meet. But what's the main take? The main thing is that, like I just said, like we're talking to every single layer 1 and layer 2 that you guys can think of. Obviously, some of them are like signed, inked, ready to go. Some of them are still in the phase where we have to talk to them. And I think it was Chang, and Terrence were there on the Dinero front, and we spent a lot of good like FaceTime with a lot of people that we think will be really good partners. Mostly chains that have never met us before. Some of these chains, like, a lot of the OGs here in the call know, like, a lot of these chains that are getting spun up are like from projects that we used to work with in the past. So it, like, a lot of them, it's a lot easier because they know us and they know our reputation. And with others, it's worthwhile to like go show face and just say hi. So we were just like trying not to move around too much. It's impossible to get around that city during F1. So we did lots of stuff in the lobbies of hotels and stuff, but it was good. And then after this, now we're all home. After this, we have Milan coming up, which isn't obviously as big as Token, but it's run by very close friends of ours. And I heard that it's going to be 3 times, 4 times bigger than last year. Last year, there was a few hundred people there. And Dave is going to be a keynote speaker there, talking about the barbell strategy that we show to you guys here on the community call, but showing it to the masses. And yeah, so if you want to go see Dave talk there, definitely feel free to go. And it'll be good for us to show up at both those things, but I'm not traveling anymore.
Yeah, I think even Chang gave a talk somewhere in Singapore.
Chang is right now.
Yeah, hopefully he didn't shill other projects during the Dinero talk. This guy. But yeah, keep an eye out on our Twitter. Like, make sure that you're following if you're the type that goes to a lot of these events or you're interested in seeing some of the talks. I'm sure some of them get recorded and whatnot. But yeah, we've been kind of like retweeting all of the events we're going to the extent that we can. Talk at Solana Breakpoint. Fuck no. Speaking of Solana though, did anybody see the BitBoy versus Ansem fight announced for December? Who we taking in this? And are there lines already available that we can bet on?
I'm taking BitBoy.
Yeah, I think I'm taking BitBoy, bro. After the last Ansem fight, it was pretty bad.
I saw that in person. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's brutal. We got a lot of people riding with BitBoy. So I think we have to get this approved by the policy committee, but I think we could do it. We just bet all of the money we have in the treasury on BitBoy. I feel like we'll get decent odds. Double the treasury, make out like a bandit. We just stream it here in the town hall. Joker Frog wants to see Ansem versus Bitlord.
No one's saying Ansem.
Yeah, Ansem's cooked, bro.
Maybe we can do a watch party in the Discord.
I'm actually, Joker Frog, now that you say that, I'm surprised that they didn't choose Bitlord. I thought that's who had the beef, is those two. Maybe BitBoy is just a bigger name. I don't know. Or maybe Bitlord didn't want to do it. Sammy versus Haim.
Wait, who said what?
Funky said Sammy versus Haim. Sign the contract, bro.
Crazy.
Dinero versus Rocket Pool.
Bigger V-Specs. Dinero versus Lido.
Yeah, always think bigger. Sort of like a tag team match, 1 round each. We should go in person to cheer for BitBoy. Where is it? I think I saw it. Is it in Dubai in December?
I don't know. I didn't see.
Yeah, Figgy says, yeah, it's in Dubai. Damn. Yeah, maybe we do a watch party or something. That'd be hilarious. I don't know if it's on a Friday or Saturday, though, so we'll just have to see. But, okay, we're sort of past the half hour here. I've covered everything that was on my list. I don't know if Sammy, Funky, or Terrence, if there's anything else you guys wanted to cover, or if there's anything the community wants us to cover. If not, we can get out of here a little early. What's up?
There's something very important to cover.
Okay.
The giveaway.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, we've been on the conference run on the IRL show past few days, so bear with us. But I've scanned the Discord and a winner has been identified. So as soon as that is ready, we will reach out to your DMs. I'll get Colton to reach out.
Yeah, and then I'll get Figgy to reach out.
The bounty.
I'll get Figgy to reach out. He'll handle the bounties. So there's a little bit of a fucking telephone situation here, but it's not going to be me. If I reach out, everybody has to give me the $1,000 in Dinero.
The chain doesn't bounce. That's the whole point. You guys had to guess what the chain was, but someone did successfully guess it.
Yeah, we had a lot of people talking about Say, but Say had already been teased. So if you said Say, you lost.
I think it was Bond God. The person who like pasted every single chain is disqualified.
Yeah, Bond God's disqualified, bro.
You're disqualified for that. That's crazy.
When is it being announced? I don't know.
We're getting our bearings back from the conference on Joker Frog. I think like half the industry is away too. So yeah, probably sometime next week. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing we're wanting to be careful about with these branded LSCs too is we don't want to announce them too early if we can avoid it, mostly because like we want the call to action to be like actually actionable. And so if you announce it too early, people might forget or whatever. So it's good for us to kind of like do the announcement shortly before it goes live, and then people actually know what to do. You have to admit it was a good try, my ChatGPT guesses. I mean, it was actually a terrible try because you spammed 100 of them. So like that's not even a real try. But it was a good effort. I'll say it was a good effort. Not a good try, but a good effort. He gamed the system.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bond God, you're the joke of the week.
Yeah, Bond God, what's your joke, bro? $1 in Dinero for effort. Yeah, you'll get it from your time swap farm that you love so much. Get him on stage. No, so I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this, but it has been a long time until we let somebody get on the stage to say something. Does anybody know the lore on why that is? Pretty easy. And it has to do with Funky's message. I'm pretty sure that was the last time anybody was allowed on stage in this Discord.
I think it was the first time and it was a mistake.
First and last at the same time. I don't know who brought that person up here, but yeah, first and last. It was probably Figgy, bro. Sammy did, of course. Of course. Talking about that, are we inviting projects back to our community calls? This is a good question. So every once in a while we have teams that like want to hop on the community call or whatever, but I don't know. To me that's not as cool. Like it's a lot more fun to just like hang out with you guys kind of like we are now, without the pressure of like needing to have a team on here to shill for 15 to 30 minutes or whatever. And I think we do a decent enough job as it is, kind of like keeping you guys informed on what projects are doing what. And then there's been a couple of instances where the people are like boring as shit when they get up here, and I don't know, it's not as fun. But if that's something everybody really wants, then we can. But yeah, that's the reason we don't.
If you guys just say it in general throughout the week, like maybe we announce something and something is just like does not make any sense, then maybe we can do it then. But I think we try to simplify communications as much as possible so that we can like spend this time like talking about like actually cool things that you guys care about, rather than making it like a mass education thing.
Yeah, and on top of that, like it cuts down the odd. It's dramatically decreases the odds that we can leak alpha, because that gives us only like 15 minutes or whatever to cover the stuff we need to cover, and the times we usually leak shit or whenever we're just hanging out like this.
But also, like we're doing a lot more community calls and stuff, as you guys can see. So we're doing a lot more Twitter Spaces and podcasts and stuff like that, which are a lot more like external. And I think these are better. These are not a mass community calls are not a marketing exercise for us. They're just more of an internal check-in with you guys. So like when it comes to like communicating stuff we're doing with partners, we keep that in Twitter for everyone to join. And
Yeah, Stripe brought up a good point. They don't even tell jokes, which, I mean, perhaps like if there's a team or two that wants to come on here, we'll make it a requirement that they have to give you guys a joke because, we're not on a huge hiring spree right now. So there's no inflow of people to haze. So if the right team comes across, then maybe it's worth. Yeah, it seems like none of you want teams to come back on, so we won't do that. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in that type of thing, just tune into the Twitter Spaces. We've been hopping on a lot of them. I did like a 45-minute one yesterday. Sammy's been on the podcast grind, and I think there's a few more in the pipeline. And a lot of these, like, especially like layer 1s and layer 2s, they love to do spaces. So there's going to be a lot of that when it comes to launching branded LSTs and whatnot. We're not saying no to them these days. Yeah. They love that shit. I don't know if any of them do. I mean, a few of you tuned into the movement one, which was like insane to be on. That was something else. I think VicePack just shared the Say one. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. I think that one was a pretty good one, actually. I think they asked good questions. They had a couple of good community questions, and Tunda did a good job as well, like explaining how Super Saiyan ETH works. So we cooked a little bit on that one. Terrence, question for you. When are we going to get Novograts on here to tell a joke?
The same day that I have a Galaxy compliance on here to read the disclaimer before and after.
When selfie? Yeah, we need a Terrence and Novo selfie. That's more possible than you think.
Okay.
Funny enough. Okay. Cool. Well, we're about 10 minutes over, and we're getting toward the hour. Creamy, I am not fucking reading whatever you just posted. That's way too long. But anyways, thanks everybody for coming to hang out. And I will get the Discord thing fixed. I'm sorry about the event stuff. We've had a couple of like reschedulings that have broken the current sort of Discord recurring event or whatever. So we'll get it fixed. That way it's easy to follow. And you guys know when we're doing these. I think we're basically 1 week push forward on everything. So like obviously this week we have one, next week we don't, so on and so forth. But I'll get it fixed for you guys. That way everything's good to go from here. So appreciate everyone coming to hang out. Thanks as always. And yeah, have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Peace.
Peace, everyone.